It's because you've exterminated the first generation. So the same government that prevents redevelopment from happening then has to give money to cause development to happen. Do you see what's happening? And you are not there yet. So far, there's just enough laid back, keeping it easy, just enough that you haven't had to subsidize anybody. But if you tighten up one more time and you turn off one more developer and you make it one iota more difficult, you'll pay for it by having to subsidize developers. And they'll come in because the place is already cool enough, and you'll be writing checks and tax breaks and so forth. We'll get there, one way or the other. I would love to activate the risk oblivious, the first generation. I would love to empower the risk oblivious. I celebrate those who renovated their places, I would say, despite the process, and there are several, okay? And I also salute the bureaucrats for looking at what is getting done under the radar and actually standing back and saying, that was well done, I'm not gonna nail this guy, okay? But we have to, at very least, keep that balance easy. Let people act, okay? Now, there's another danger, which is if we're too successful, the third generation that takes over the risk-aware are the risk-adverse. And they're called dentists from New Jersey. Okay? And that's why, and it just turns into a bore, complete bore. And we have to actually be well short of that. We have to keep it funky, not cleaning up too much, leave the sidewalks the way they are, just let it live so that the dentists say, why would you want to go there? Okay? And what happens is if you polish it too much, you really lose it. I think a lot of cities have lost it. I think New Orleans is very close to losing it. Bourbon Street is certainly a goner, you know. But actually, you can look at what's happening in Miami Beach. I mean, in my own city, South Miami, Coconut Grove, South Beach, Key West. I mean, they're gone. They're not cool anymore. They were too discovered. And I think just keep that in mind. Don't make it too neat, and don't make it too formal, and the dentists won't like it. That's the important thing. Okay, so that's for the historic district. We also mapped your civic buildings. You have a collection of civic buildings that actually not one of them is it's like jewels. This is your jewelry drawer. Look at how they're lying. There's absolutely nothing connects to anything else. And some of them are pretty big investments. The civic center's over here, the convention center's over here, the museums are over here, the city hall is over here. By the way, city hall's not in the park. You see what I'm saying? You're getting a courthouse over here. This school is of that unfortunate spaceship that landed variety. It's nowhere near the city. It's sort of breaking away from all sides. This school is the way it used to be. This is called Bradford Academy, is it? Barton Academy. That fits into the city. That's what we're looking at. But everything is separate, the churches and everything, okay? Some of these are huge investments, and one of the things we're going to try and do is tie a few of them together. We are using the civic buildings, both programming and physically, to tie them together. What you have here is a city that has virtually everything that it needs, but 2 plus 2 adds to 4. Well, 2 times 2 should be 9. If everything were together, if you could get from one to the other as a pedestrian, and you had a festival, boy, that would work. Every person that shows up to the convention center should actually be, it would be inevitable. They should consider that convention center to be an extension of Dolphin Street, period. You see, it's not 2 separate things. You don't have to cross water. It's just inevitable that all these things happen. But right now, this is really very telling. You would say, well, it's very well distributed. No, it's not well distributed at all. Nothing connects to anything else. So you'll see us working on some of that. By the way, in this college over here, which normally would make it a college town, has such a suburban design, you know, that on Beauregard, I believe that is, or Broad, that it just doesn't, it's very, very hard. We tried to reconnect it, and it's just too disparate. It's one of these suburban campuses that find it's very hard to connect it back into the city. Now, I can make you feel good and say, and do a nice drawing and say, well, we're all connecting this back. We're not connecting this back. Okay, we're not. We're also not connecting this school back. It's too bad. You can't do it. It's a school that people are going to bus to, very few people are going to walk to. We're going to do our best, but don't get your hopes up, because the physical reality resists. And in some cases, we can salvage it, but what the form-based code will do is actually prevent this kind of suburban stuff in the inner city. Here they are, how they sit. These are just the educational institutions, and I want to call attention to a couple. This school is so separate that it's hard to deal with, but there's an academy here, there's an arts academy here, and this is the, I'm sorry, the Bradford School? The Barton School. The Barton School is here, and there's some elementary schools across the way, and this is pretty interesting. So you have a high school, 2 high schools, a middle school, and an elementary school, and this is a 5-minute walk. Okay, that's a quarter mile. Children of my age, when we were asked to walk a mile to school. That was minimum. If you walked a mile, you didn't get bus service. Okay? People should be able to walk to school, and this is a 5-minute walk. Okay? So you can see that actually the residential area of our plan is saturated with schools. And if you give a half-mile walk, which is just 10 minutes, a 10-minute walk, everybody in the town center has access to all 3 kinds of schools. You know, and that's kind of ideal. By the way, in all these plans, we have an orange line here. That is Dauphin Street, just to keep you oriented. Dauphin Street is where the way we think. We think off Dauphin Street. We think in terms of Dauphin Street. So to get oriented, that's where we look. That's where the social energy is. So that line always orients you. That's Dauphin. I think the rest is pretty clear, right? This is water. This is canal. This is government. And this is the loop. This is the ring road that was a Beauregard and Broad. That's like a fortress around. It's like, almost like it's as if you had been a medieval city and had taken your walls down, but hadn't rebuilt it back properly. That's what it looks like. It looks like a southern French city. And the big action is that you have cleared out the unbearable spaghetti down here and created a lot of real estate, but above all, a connection to your park and Marine Museum on the other side. So we'll talk about that. I would like to talk a little bit about schools. Everybody asked me to. I'm going to take a little time off because I think I've been asked to talk about this. Of course, we speak to everyone, and people say, well, I can't live downtown because the schools aren't good enough. And I was fortunate enough when I was told this to have a person that knew a lot about your public school system, and he explained to me how much better it was getting and everything that was in the pipeline. And he said, go ahead and call Secretary Arna Duncan in Washington. He'll verify that we're a very special, we're a very special school system, public school system. So of course what you have is something that actually could become a great asset that is not properly polemicized, is not known. So one of the reasons I get into this is to help this happen, to help you understand that what's happening in these schools is going to be something that's going to be envied, that if you were to consider sending kids to these schools, to these public schools, you might be very pleasantly surprised, and that it's going to get better. Then I heard, well, of course, you might very well have the best schools here, but the kids are selected by lottery and they come from everywhere. So there is no advantage to living near a school. And so I spoke to people, Airbus, people who know, and they said, it'd make a great deal of sense if 20 to 30% of the places in these schools were allocated to people within 5 or 10-minute walking distance. So you get 60% that are random, but then you reward people for living nearby. So that the kids can walk, the parents can participate, so that people who live downtown can go pick up their kid and have lunch with them, so they can have a teacher-parent conference much more easily. And this is so far as I present this idea, people say, why not? You see, it helps not at all for us to encourage to have the best schools downtown, so that people come to live downtown, and then the kids to go to the school actually come